Welcome again inside my wardrobe. In this episode, I will show you how I made diorama for my Dreadnought model I did last time. And it all started with a big problem. Since I do not have thermal cutter for XPS, I've cutted it with trapezoid blade knife, roughly into shape. Then I've glued all pieces together with universal glue. I've outlined the scene with a pen and started to carve the top layer, creating terrain features. I've glued thin slices of XPS overhanging a little bit, so they look like water was slowly rinsing earth from beneath. I've known from beginning that it will be a challenge to keep it straight, so I used a coarse sandpaper and block of XPS as a handle to square it. And it worked great, to some point. I was worried that if something went wrong, then I will be unable to glue veneer correctly. I did not want to risk, so I've cutted paper rectangle as a template, and I wasn't aware how much off I was with the shape. I should have done that in the first place. To fix that, I've used wood saw with a sewing jig. A lot of work that could be avoided. When working on our garden, I found those cool looking Roseflower roots. They were super dried out after I exposed them to extreme sun for a few days. When dealing with dry wood, it is very easy to break it, but I wanted to keep bark peeling off as a point of visual interest. To preserve that, make them stronger, or even to prevent wood from decaying, I prepared a mixture of highly diluted wood glue and I gave them bath inside. Wood is built of tiny straw structures. They will suck inside the water and sow the glue within it. I've placed some stones and pieces of wood on the diorama and painted them a few times with PVA. It will lock them in place and also trap loose particles of dirt and dust. As an alternative, you could clean them with a toothbrush, but I skipped that since it was not necessary with these ones. After posing the model and locking it with glue, it was time to cover the base with texture paste from AK Interactive. I had spread it all over the base, pushing it in every corner, till whole XPS was covered. Then I added small pieces of roots, as roots, after the water uncovered them. Then I've added Dreadnought sarcophagus cover and sprinkled some sand mixed with tiny stones onto the lake bed, and glued them in place with PVA. For the diorama rim, I was using 0.4mm thin slice of Palisander veneer. There are many cool looking wood types out there that have outstanding colors and structures. Wood with a barrel, for example, or even pieces with fungus grown inside. Woodworking is whole another world to uncover, and I wanted to incorporate my interest in that also in model building. Sometimes veneer comes warped or even splitting, but how to deal with that and few other tips I will cover in tutorial video soon in the future. After cutting in smaller halves and outlining the terrain shape, I removed the excess veneer and begin the gluing process. I think the CA with accelerator would work better on the corners, but because I didn't have any at the time, I put some PVA on the edges. Back of the veneer was covered with double-sided tape. Wood glue on perpendicular contact with backside of the veneer didn't cause any problems. But when touching the in-grain edge, it got soaked into the straw structure of wood, causing warpage. I've managed to prevent exterminatus from happening with wood clamps. After the back was in place, I began to trim the edges. First roughly with hobby knife, then with sanding bit of my rotary tool. And finally, for detailed work with smaller diamond tip. And it was looking pretty good. Before filling the gap between ground and the veneer, or even thinking about painting, I needed to finish the wood with protecting solution. For that I was using Rubio Monocoat Hybrid. It will soak inside the wood grain, closing its pores, so the pigment from texture paste will not tint the wood. It is pretty common error you can notice when looking at dioramas. Paint or resin will soak inside the wood, creating darker area, impossible to remove. Rubio Monocoat will prevent that from happening, and on top of that, it will bring natural wood colors to life, enriching it with contrast. Next day, when it was dry to touch, I filled the gaps. Then I've added some twigs around the trunk, as the tree was trying to grow back. Then I've drilled few holes inside the fallen part of the tree to add branches. Off camera, I used Tamiya epoxy putty to sculpt bark in those spots. Then I've used kitchen tinfoil and Tamiya basic type putty to create bark texture as well on the tree with peeling off effect. When the putty started to dry, I just randomly ran over it with hobby knife. It worked better than I expected, so maybe next time I will do that in a place that would be actually visible with a model in place. Then I've scattered some seagrass over the ground. During the painting I will add some moss and paper plants, but after I glued it with watered down PVA as well as custom made grass tufts and mushrooms, the diorama was finished. If I have to be honest, my favorite part of this project is definitely the Palisander veneer. It was stressful, and I didn't even show you exactly how much effort it took to make it work. I just thank the machine god for wood clamps and determination. So, share this video with your friends if you enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe so we can see each other in the next part, where I will be painting the whole thing. And if you would like to know more how to handle veneer, watch my guide at the end. It was Martin from Wardrobe Workshop. Over and out.